Welcome back to AZ Recaps. Today, I'm going to explain the movie 3 Iron, released in the year 2004. At the start of the movie we're introduced to a young man Tae-suk, who seems like a normal guy at first glance. However, we later get to know that he has a very strange habit of breaking into empty houses to stay for the night. Tae-suk has been doing this for years and has mastered the art of breaking in. As a result, he's never been caught. He uses a very smart tactic to select the next house he wants to break into. Tae-suk pays some random flyers on people's doors and returns to check on them the next day. If the flyers are not present, it means the owners are inside. However, if the flyers are still there, he cunningly picks the lock and enters inside. Later, we get to know that Tae-suk never steals from any of the houses he breaks into. Rather, he takes a shower, does the homeowner's laundry, and also repairs their damaged electronics. In this way, he takes care of the house as if it's his own. Moreover, he always clicks a picture of himself with the family portrait as a souvenir. In one instance, the family returns home while Tae-suk is still inside the house, but even then he manages to escape without any trace. In the next scene, Tae-suk sneaks into a mansion that belongs to a wealthy businessman named Mingyu. The rich guy has a beautiful wife named Sunhwa who used to be a famous model but gave everything up after her marriage. Turns out that Mingyu is abusive to his wife and always sexually abuses her. Despite this, Sunhwa is too afraid to inform the authorities about it. At the same time, Tae-suk enters the house when he finds the flyer still on the front gate. However, he's totally oblivious to the fact that Sunhwa is inside the house weeping as the evil Mingyu has abused her again. Soon, Sunhwa notices the intruder, but it doesn't seem to concern her. She rather hides and watches him do his unusual activities. Tae-suk gazes through the appealing pictures of Sunhwa while she was still a model. Just then, the phone rings, and when no one picks up, Mingyu leaves a voicemail threatening his wife to pick up. Still, Tae-suk is unaware that Sunhwa is in the house. After this, he takes his mandatory picture with a portrait and cooks dinner for himself. All this while, Sunhwa is secretly watching him from nearby. Meanwhile, Tae-suk gathers all the dirty clothes lying around and starts washing them. As he's hanging them up to dry, he notices a golf practice net and starts playing with it. Later, he does some more repair, and as he's about to go to sleep, he notices Sunhwa staring at him. Tae-suk is startled by the encounter, but he does not speak a word. After the confrontation, Tae-suk quickly packs his stuff. But as he's about to leave, Mingyu calls again. In the voicemail, he threatens Sunhwa to pick up or else he will take brutal action against her. Tae-suk eventually leaves, but he only has Sunhwa in his mind. Pitying her condition, he decides to return to the house and finds Sunhwa crying in the bathtub. He then silently places some clothes for her to change after she gets out. Soon, Sunhwa gets to know of his presence but doesn't react to it. After a while, the two communicate with the help of a billiard ball by passing it to each other from one room to another. In the meantime, Mingyu returns home and immediately berates his wife for leaving the door open. He also tries to force himself on her but suddenly gets distracted by Tae-suk, who's playing golf outside. When Mingyu steps outside to confront the intruder, he is hit in his private parts. As Mingyu writhes in pain, Tae-suk calmly steps out of the house and gets on his bike. Surprisingly, Sunhwa also joins him and the two drive away. Following this, the duos start living together. Time passes by, and Sunhwa starts helping Tae-suk with his break-ins. Early enough, Tae-suk drills a hole in a billiard ball, puts a string through it, ties it to the bark of a tree to practice golf. He practices for hours as Sunhwa waits for him nearby. One night, the two break into a photographer's house and find numerous pictures of nude models. Surprisingly, Sunhwa's picture is also among them. Enraged, she shreds the picture to pieces and rejoins them like an unsolved puzzle, portraying that her life has changed now. Later, Tae-suk gets on with his usual repairing fetish while Sunhwa cleans the house owner's laundry. The duo then cooks dinner and leaves after taking pictures with the photos around the house. Despite being together for months, the two haven't talked to each other even once. However, they have a mutual understanding that only some couples can boast of. For example, when Sunhwa wants him to stop practicing golf, she simply stands in front of him, not letting him continue. In the next scene, the couple breaks into another house that belongs to a famous boxer. They start inspecting the place, and through the voicemail they get to know that the boxer and his wife are out on a Hawaii vacation. The duo then carry out their usual chores, but this time they get drunk and fall asleep in the bed. Unfortunately, the owners return home and find the intruders in their house wearing their clothes. Enraged, the boxer bashes Tae-suk brutally and throws them out of the house. Following the incident, the duo head to a convenience store and start bonding over a cup of instant ramen. As Seung-hwa eats, Tae-suk ties the billiard ball to a tree and practices golf yet again. This time, the ball is tied loosely so it flies off and hits a woman who is driving past in a car. They run to see what happened and discover a guy crying over the woman's death. Tae-suk is guilt-ridden after the incident. He sits by the side of the road crying as Seung-hwa comforts him. The next day, they go to a neighborhood with traditional Korean houses to paste the flyers. That night, they return to the place, and after finding the flyers still present, they break inside. They pour tea and sit on the sofa for a long time without talking. Suddenly Tae-suk starts moving closer and the two finally make out. The next morning, the duo reaches a dilapidated complex and breaks inside one of the apartments. As soon as they enter, they're welcomed by a strong foul smell. After a bit of checking, they find an old man's rotting corpse there. The couple is frightened to witness this. But, instead of calling the authorities, they decide to wrap up the corpse and give him a proper burial. The following day, while the couple is having their breakfast, the deceased man's son and daughter-in-law arrive at the house looking for him. However, instead of their father, they find the intruders and immediately call the police. Soon, the cops arrive and arrest the duo for breaking in. At the police station, an officer questions them, but the two of them refuse to speak. They assume that Tae-suk had kidnapped Seung-hwa and is forcing her to be with him. When Seung-hwa is questioned, she neither denies nor affirms the claim. In the next scene, the cops find the camera with their break-in pictures and assume that they are thieves. However, when they contact the respective owners, they find out that the couple hasn't stolen a thing. Soon, the autopsy report of the dead man arrives, and it reveals that he died of lung cancer. Just when the duo breathes a sigh of relief, the police find out that Seung-hwa had escaped from her house long ago, and hence they call Mingyu to retrieve her. On the other hand, they give Tae-suk a short sentence for trespassing on private property. Seung-hwa goes back home and is more miserable than before. Mingyu tries to reason with her, saying that he sent money to her parents and also kept her favorite plant alive, but she doesn't respond. A furious Mingyu calls the police inspector assigned to the case and bribes him. He wants the policeman to handcuff Tae-suk in for an hour for him to take revenge. They meet under a bridge where Mingyu hits Tae-suk with billiard balls, as he had done to him. Tae-suk falls to the ground in pain. But the policeman doesn't stop Mingyu. All of a sudden he attacks Mingyu and has to be stopped. Following the encounter, Tae-suk is imprisoned. He's taken to a cell where 3 other inmates are also staying. However, they soon begin to notice his unusual activities. Tae-suk practices with an imaginary golf ball and golf club for hours, and becomes happy when he hits the target. One of the inmates decides to tease him by stealing the imaginary ball, but this results in a huge brawl between the two. Fortunately, they're separated and put into separate rooms. Tae-suk is locked up inside solitary confinement, but he seems to be happy about it as now no one can bother him. Time passes by and he starts practicing stealth. With all the time in his hands, he becomes excellent at the skill and starts moving around like a ninja. Elsewhere at the mansion, the cruel Mingyu again assaults Seung-hwa, but this time she has enough courage to stand up against him. When he tries to force her into doing something she doesn't want to, she slaps Mingyu on his face and storms off. Meanwhile, Tae-suk starts playing with the guards by staying out of sight even when he's in a tiny room. Sometimes, he hides closely to the wall so they cannot see him from the door. While other times he hangs to the ventilation high up in the wall, making them think he's run away. The guards beat him up every time he pulls a prank on them, but he doesn't seem to mind the pain. Elsewhere, Seung-hwa remembers Tae-suk all the time. In order to keep herself occupied, she starts fixing things around the house and doing the laundry just like Tae-suk used to. One day, she even goes to the traditional Korean house that they once broke into. The house owners are taken aback, but they let her sleep on the sofa anyway. After a comfortable nap, she simply leaves without uttering a single word. On the other hand, Tae-suk has become a master ninja. His concealment skills are so good that whenever a guard enters his room he fails to spot him. He hides behind the guard and moves around with such preciseness that the man thinks he has run away until he notices his shadow. Elsewhere, Mingyu notices Sanhwa's weird behavior and realizes that she's waiting for Tae-suk to be released from prison. Initially, he plans to change houses. But later, he decides against it, as running away seems cowardly to him. Finally, he makes up his mind to stay in the house and wait for Tae-suk to return so that he can kill him. One day, a guard doing the daily rounds looks into Tae-suk's room and sees him missing as usual. Fed up with his behavior, he goes inside the room but doesn't see him at all. He's pushed around by what seems like a mysterious force. At this moment, the guard thinks that Tae-suk has turned into a ghost. But in reality, Tae-suk has just become a master ninja. In the next scene, Tae-suk is finally released from the prison. With newfound skills, he starts breaking into houses even when the owners are present. He goes to the boxer's house, the traditional house, and even the house of the photographer. All the owners seem to instinctively feel his presence but cannot find him. After this, he finally heads to Mingyu house. The man immediately feels his presence and goes out searching with a golf club. However, when he cannot find anyone, he decides to go to sleep. Sanhwa knows Tae-suk enough to know that he's present somewhere near. She goes to the living room and stares into a mirror, and right then Tae-suk appears behind her. Seconds later, Mingyu returns to the room, but by then Tae-suk is already out of sight. Suddenly, Sanhwa speaks for the first time and says, "I love you." A delighted Mingyu assumes that she's talking to him. But in reality, she's talking to Tae-suk over his shoulder. Mingyu hugs his wife while she kisses the intruder Tae-suk behind his back. The next day, a happy Sanhwa is seen cooking for everyone. Seeing his wife's strange behavior, Mingyu even asks her to stop smiling. While he eats, the ninja Tae-suk is also enjoying the meal standing right behind him. After Mingyu departs for work, the newly formed couple start playing with each other. The movie ends as Tae-suk tries to hide from Sanhwa, but she finds him anyway. That was all from the video. I hope you liked it. Subscribe for more content like this, and hit the like button to help us out. Also leave a comment if you want us to recap your favorite movie. Until next time, take care.